I don't think I'm getting the sound. See. I think I'm getting the sound. Okay, I think the sound is coming now. Okay, I think the sound is coming now. Alrighty, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you find yourself today. I don't know why the lightning, it's a little, but it's, anyway, show still goes on. I want to welcome everybody to 2025 Analyze This. This year is going to be an exciting one. Um, it's going to be educative as always. And this year we intend to bring a lot more people on the discussion table because we're going to be um, talking more about certain specific um, and professional. We're going to narrow down to certain areas of professions where we are going to have people who are well versed in those areas to and educated in those areas to enlighten us all on it. Um, Today it's going to be kind of free for all. We're going to be looking at a whole, we're not going to be taking that much of your time, but we're going to be discussing, we're going to start um, with a discussion on what's going on in Ghana, what has happened during the campaign, the elections, um, the swearing in, the appointments, and everything. So it tells you that we're not going to be able to finish today, or we're not going to complete our discussion today. It's not going to come to an end today. And then we're also going to start another series called the Life Series, where we're going to be talking about issues concerning life. Um, if anybody has any question, anything bothering you, I mean, we're going to make that discussion available. We're going to also bring people of knowledge and understanding to that particular platform, and they are going to help us enlighten us to learn a few things that will help us to make our lives journey a success and a memorable one. With that being said, um, I believe that most people, we're today specifically going to talk about Ghana, but again, as we always know, most of the things concerning one country in Africa concerns almost every African country. So even though we're going to be talking about Ghana, we still going to be talking about issues that affect uh, the various African countries or the African continent. Um, Before we jump on to today's discussion, I want to always remind ourselves that creativity and inventions are not by the color of one's skin, but by the content, by the educated mind. So we want to encourage everybody on this platform to educate him or herself in order to be creative. Because the only way you can be creative is when you enlighten yourself, when you are able to, as it were, expose your mind to your abilities, to your gifts, and develop those gifts, develop those talents, gifts, and serve it to your community to solve problems within your community. That is the only way we can tell that you are an educated person. It's not by how many schools you've been to or what kind of schools you've been to. That does not make you an educated person. It actually makes you a schooled person, but it does not make you an educated person. So we want to believe that education, or not that we want to believe, we know that creativity and inventions are not by the color of one's skin, but by an educated mind. And so let us educate ourselves and be creative, or let us educate ourselves and create. Alrighty. So, as I said, we're going to touch a little bit on the uh, political, what you call it, activities that went on in Ghana. But before we go there, I just want to say this. Multi-party politics, or some people would say multi-party democracy, is not, I want to say it again, it is not all democracy, all there is to democracy. Let me put it that way. Multi-party system of governance. I think I like that better. Multi-party system of governance is not all there is to democracy. So when we talk about democracy, we are not talking about multi-party system of governance. Democracy, before I continue, let me welcome our sister Veronica. You are welcome to analyze this. At any point in time, if you want to chip in something or if you have any uh, contribution, you can go ahead and do that. We on this platform educate ourselves, we enlighten ourselves, we empower ourselves to be able to make a difference in our world. So you're very much welcome and Happy New Year. Finally, I have seen your face on our platform. Thank you so much for being a part of the
Thank you for
discussion
inviting me.
today. And like I said from the beginning, even though we're going to be talking specifically or relating to the issues going on in Ghana, it affects most of the African. It's it's one continent, so the problems are the same everywhere. You go to Nigeria, you see the same problem. You go to Congo, you go to South Africa, any African country you go, you see the same problems we're going to be talking about here over there. So um, it's relative. It relates to most of the places in Africa. And to some extent, I would even argue that it also relates to Black people everywhere. Yeah. So um, let me just give this intro and then we can um, start the discussion. And if you have any contribution, you can just jump in.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, as I was saying, when we talk about multi-party, I'm taking my time to do this discussion because it I get worried when I hear people I assume knows better making statements like, oh, democracy is not for the African. Democracy is not for the black man. Democracy is a Western concept and all this stuff. And I keep asking myself, I thought this person should know better, and most of the basis for their argument is that it's not working well in Ghana. So the problem is democracy. That is why I want us to take some time to discuss this issue of democracy. Multi-party system of governance is not the definition of democracy. I want to get that out of the way. It is not. It is a system the Western world decided, or let me say, okay, let me use this building a home. We have the architect who has a plan. He puts all the plan on paper. He knows where every pillar goes. He knows how the foundation needs to be arranged. They throw in the mortar, they throw in the gravels or what have you, they fill it with sand and all this stuff. So the foundation is what holds the building. And so democracy has foundational pillars that holds society together. The democracy is a conjunction of two words. It's a Greek word, demos kratia. In other words, the power of the people or the rule of the people. And so I keep asking people this question. If you have the power, what are you going to do with that power? And everybody thinks about, I'm going to better my life. I'm going to put stuff in place to progress my life. I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to make sure I have a roof over my head. I'm going to make sure nobody wrongs me. I'm going to make sure I have the right to happiness. So that is your power. That is your right, is your birthright. But this is a case where you live in a community. And so you are not going to be able to make those things come to pass in isolation. It has to be within the structure of the community. And so, in order for that community to make those dreams of yours come to reality, there has to be a way of setting up or a way of putting up systems whereby those systems are going to assist you within your power, within your right to be able to see those aspirations and those dreams to come to pass. So that is where governance comes into play. And so within that community, I always tell people, you have people from different backgrounds, people from with different ideologies, different concepts, with different people. We're all not brought up in the same um, structure or from the same home. We're brought up differently. And sometimes some of the um, concepts we're brought up with happens to be the wrong concepts of life. But we hold on to them and we live our lives by them. And so, in order for us to create a harmonious community, in order for us to create a progressive community where every Tom, Dick, and Harry can see his or her aspirations come to pass, there has to be a structure, there has to be a system. And so the system is what democracy gives to us. So democracy is a system that is helping me and you to realize our dreams. And so that is where the issue of the supremacy of law comes to play. Because life, as I said in the previous videos, no, sorry, that was on Leadership Academy. I spoke about laws, the concept of laws. Laws happens to be the axis upon which life rotates. Our life rotates on laws. Everything about our life has to do with the law. We have the natural laws. We have the societal laws. I mean, we cannot live life without even the system of broadcasting this information to you is based on a certain law. We have the law of aerodynamics. We have the law of gravity. Everything. And so, in order for us to create a harmonious society and a progressive society, there has to be that superiority or that law which would bind everything together, which will put everything in order. And as I always define law as a system or a program or the understanding of the success of a thing. Law will give you the understanding of the success of a thing. If you don't know the law that operates whatever entity you find yourself in, you cannot be successful in that area. So, for example, if you buy a cell phone, when you open the box, the first thing you see is the manual. That is the law. And the manufacturer will tell you, do not operate this device until you are done reading the law, which governs the success of the device. And so, law gives us the understanding to the success of every aspect of our lives. The law of health. As I said the other time, you have to know what to eat and what not to eat. You have to know how to exercise. You have to know how to sleep or get enough sleep, get enough water. It's a law. So I cannot create my own law when it comes to health. It doesn't work like that because I am not the inventor of health. So the law is the inventor's idea of making you successful in that particular arena. And so if I want to live a healthy life, I have to think of what am I eating? Do I have enough rest? Do I have enough water or liquid? Do I exercise enough? So these are the things, the laws governing good health, period. You can't do nothing about it. And as I always say, laws are not based on our emotions. It has nothing to do with our emotions. When I hit the 95 right now, the 95, in some areas you have to do, the speed limit is 65, some areas is 70. Let's say I get a call that something is going on. Well, my mom is dead, so I can use that as an example, that my mom is in the hospital, critically ill. And I get sad, I get emotional, and I jump in my car and decide to drive 90 miles per hour. Guess what? The next minute, I'm going to see what I call the Christmas lights behind me. Why? Because I am breaking a law. I am not within the successful operations of a law. And so when the cop pulls me over, I cannot tell the cop, oh, I'm sad, so I had to overspeed. It doesn't fly. Well, some of them might sympathize or empathize with you and let you get away. That's where the human element comes in. but some of them will do their job. And you're gonna get that in Virginia, it's a yellow slip. You're gonna get that yellow slip and you're gonna pay. So within the law is a consequence. And the consequence is either good based on you operating the laws according to the intent of the manufacturer. The consequence would be bad if you operate within the laws according to your own interpretation of the law. So what I tell my kids most of the time is if you're not the inventor, don't change the laws. So we need laws to govern us so that our individual dreams will come to pass. My dream of being able to wake up every morning and freely go to work and come back, my dream of my right to happiness, my dream of my freedom, and all that to come to pass, which is my power, which is my right, has to be successful based on the laws within the community or the society where I find myself. And so when we talk about democracy, it is the law that governs the community. That is the democracy, which will make your dream and my dream come to pass. It is not how many times we go to the polls. That is not democracy. That is multi-party system, which the Western world designed to help them to choose their leaders. So that is not the democracy. It is a system they have put in place to help them to move their democracy within their community. And so a community can have, let's say, a kingdom where they have the king, but the rule of law is paramount. It is a democracy where people have their right to freedom. It is a democracy where people have their right. Nobody steps on their rights. Nobody tramples on their rights. That is a democracy. The system is helping them to fulfill their dreams and their aspirations in life. That is the foundation of democracy. It's a foundational pillar. The rule of law is the foundational pillar of democracy. And so now the community will have to sit and come up with systems that will help them to make this rule of law paramount within their community. So that is where I call the structures of democracy. So multi-party system is a structure of democracy. It is not the foundational pillar of democracy. Because when you look at America goes to the polls every 4 years. And I believe Germany or so goes 5 or 8 years, 7 years. So are we saying that the Germans are not being democratic? So the multi-party system and the going to the ballot boxes and all that stuff, it's a system put in place to help facilitate the rule of law in a community. And so when it comes to Africa specifically, if the system we are borrowing is not working, then we need to look at our system, our communities, because the culture of the people helps in setting up systems that would make the rule of law paramount within that community. You cannot negate the culture of the people from their community. It's not going to work. So if you're talking about the governance of the people, then we have to take into consideration the culture of the people. And as I always say, the culture is based on what we've been made to believe. And so if we want to go the Western style or the Western system by going every 4 years to the polls, the legislative system, what have you, then let us create a culture within our community that aligns with that system. That's all I'm saying. But let us, I cringe when I hear people who are supposed to know better say, oh, that is why the military rule is. What do you mean? The military rule does not make the law. It does not make your power, my power, paramount. It is based on somebody's emotions. And your emotions cannot rule a whole community. Well, I don't want to digress. When we come to leadership, we'll talk about emotional intelligence as paramount ingredient you need to execute leadership. And so when we talk about democracy, please, it is not a Western idea. It's a human idea. The rule of law is a human idea. You take the rule of law out, you have a chaotic society. If there's no rule of law, I would interpret things differently. Somebody else will interpret things differently based on how they understand things. And if that happens, then we are creating the survival of the fittest community, which does not help anybody. So please, those of you who are supposed to know better, please learn, please. And don't just make any statement because and most of the time they get bigger platforms like national televisions, bigger platforms, and nobody challenges them on that. And you are misinforming the younger generation. So they think, oh, nah, I mean, democracy doesn't work in Ghana. Democracy doesn't work in Africa. Let's go to military rule. Let somebody pick up a gun. I mean, think about it. Somebody forcing himself or somebody forcing the system on you through the barrel of the gun, and you think that is all right to live as a human community? And so I just want to end here. We believe and we know when you look at the Genesis, maybe next week we'll talk about how this whole concept of democracy came about. It's a Greek, it started from the Greek philosophers because they sat down and they realized that within the human community or within the human society, we don't have to live like animals. The animals live according to the concept of survival of the fittest. Somebody calls it dog eat dog concept. If we're talking as humans and we want to live as humans, we cannot go by that concept because that concept creates chaos. Look at the wars going on. It's based on that concept. Look at all the chaos in the world. Just sit back, reflect on all the chaos in the world. Somebody claims this land belongs to me. I got to take it at all costs from you because I'm more powerful than you. Somebody says, I need gold diamond from Africa. Let me create confusion in that continent so I can take what it belongs to them by force. It's a concept of survival of the fittest. And so if we want to live in a progressive community, the law has to be supreme. And that is where democracy comes into play. All right, Miss Veronica, if you have something else to contribute or add to educate us, you can jump in.
I find what you had to say very interesting. It is
I,
interesting that
I
you
believe your mic is muted.
okay, let me see. Can you hear me? Okay, I've unmuted the mic. Can you hear me?
Okay, I think the problem is from here. Man,
Okay,
today,
I've unmuted
first
my
day
mic.
of our broadcasting, everything is going haywire, but
Can you hear me now?
okay, I think the problem is from here. Man,
Okay,
today,
I've unmuted
first
my
day of our broadcasting. Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay. I found it very interesting that the way you're speaking on laws. Um, Laws are definitely the foundation, but
Okay, I can hear you now. Okay.
the laws
I
are
found it
brought
very
together by.
interesting
Can
that
you hear me?
the way
Because I
you
hear a lot
speak
of
on
background.
laws, um, laws are definitely the foundation, but the laws are brought together by.
I'm
Can you
hearing a
hear me?
lot of
Because I
back.
hear a lot of background.
Yeah. So what
Oh,
I was,
there's a feedback.
yes.
Hold on one second. Let me change my headset.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Okay,
I
that's
can hear
that's
you
much
now.
better. Okay. Yeah, that was interesting. I was just going over some information regarding the African Union and that they wanted to become more powerful or have a larger voice within the UN. So it's very interesting that you're speaking about laws today. Um, that would be extremely helpful. I think the difference between having a communal society, which many African societies are, compared to what you see in the US, which we're a more individualistic society, it does bring into play what you're talking about as far as bringing in your culture into the laws that are made, because you can't just adopt someone else's ideology when you live a completely different type of lifestyle. Many of the individuals who are African that came from Africa that are here in the U.S. now or in the U.K. In conversation, I found that they found the lifestyle a little different because we are an individualistic society, and we don't necessarily go over, to our neighbor, or we're not necessarily always with people. A lot of times we're just in our homes, we're just working, we're just, doing our own thing. Even the concept of having like a house girl or a house boy in your home, because all those things are things that you do for yourself, you know. Um, are different ways of lifestyle. But as I'm, talking to different people and as I'm learning different things, um, when you are setting up how you want your society to move forward, it is important to consider the differences. And it is true. It's not, the Western ideology is not for everyone, but it is the way, as you said, to set up the law and how you want democracy to work for your individual community. But I would like to see my African brothers and sisters collectively be able to have that power, because I was shocked when I realized that they didn't have really a say in the voting power in the UN. So the fact that we're in 2024 and asking that the largest continent on the planet does not have veto power in our world is heartbreaking.
And the richest.
And the richest. So that our brothers and sisters can find a way to utilize their resources in order to come together and become that powerhouse that they can be. It does begin with looking at your system, looking at your laws, and finding out how to make things work for you as a community and as a whole, so that you can be the powerhouse that you everybody knows that you have the ability to be, you know. So yeah, that's my little.
Yeah, the issue about the African Union, that's an interesting topic. I don't want to go there today, but
Okay.
you see, I'm just going to scratch the surface. This is the concept. The world as it is. I always tell people there are only two systems in the world, or two systems in operation in our space as we know it as our world. Is the system, or let me say two laws. The systems of the world is one law, and the system of life is another law. Within the system of the world is where the issue of the concept of the survival of the fittest. It works within the system of the world because the system of the world was created by man.
Mm.
And so we are creating a system whereby the powerful ones or the smart ones can always be ahead and be on top. The system of life is nature. And so you cannot have your way that has been created by nature to function according to the laws of life. The system of the world, which, let me bring ourselves to this dispensation. When I'm talking about this dispensation, I'm talking about from the Roman Empire, no, let me go back a little bit. Yeah, okay. From the Roman Empire coming all the way, from the Greeks to the Roman Empire coming all the way to the British Empire, and now to our current, um, that is where the system of the world was structured for the winner to take it all, or if you're powerful, you take it all and control.
Can I just I just find it curious that because the African Empire was first.
Yeah,
So you
that's why
didn't.
I said the dispensation. That
Oh,
was
okay.
before the
Okay.
African. That was
Okay.
this dispensation was after the African
Right.
dispensation. Yeah.
Okay.
So that is
Okay.
why I was trying to start it from the Greeks, the Romans, the British, and then
Okay.
now, yes. So they set up a structure which started from the Greeks. And part of the problem was even done by the Greeks to define the principles of life wrongly, and they did it on purpose.
Mhm.
For instance, leadership. When you read the Greek philosophers, they defined leadership. Their early definition of leadership was God's appointed people. And so these people, they gave certain criteria. They have to be charismatic. It'll interest you to know that even the shape of their nose qualifies them to be leaders. According to
Mhm.
the Greeks,
Mhm.
you have to be blue eye to be a leader. And that is where they created the aristocratic society.
Mhm.
They did it on purpose so they can have a certain group of people to control the majority of the people. And that concept, when the Romans took over, they borrowed that concept. When the British took over, they borrowed that concept. And so that is the concept they have used all this while. So the concept creates a community of the most powerful, the smartest people would have to take it all and manipulate and be on top and rule and do this. If you're not part of the aristocratic, the ruling class. And charisma means the gift of the gods. So you are charismatic. The gods have gifted you that ability to be a leader, which is not true. So this is just a little background I'm giving to why African Union find themselves in the position they have now. And so that concept, which created the superiority of the complexion of a particular group of people over, and within the Greek definition of leadership, the darker your skin means that you are not qualified to be a leader. You have to be a servant. So that concept is what guided the shaping of the systems of the world. And so when they found Africa, when they chanced on Africa, they're like, now we have found a people to serve us. So let's put a system in place that will keep these people to think of themselves as servants. And you'd be shocked to hear some of the things even Africans believe about themselves.
I've heard and it's a thing of self-esteem and just generally speaking, self-esteem is so important because self-esteem is very key. When I talk to young ladies specifically, it affects your success because when you do not feel good about yourself, then you are not going to do the things that are going to put you to the top. You're not going to push yourself because you always feel like you're incapable, you're unable, you're not good enough. And those negative thoughts feed how far that an individual is able to go. So it is so important about the self-esteem. And unfortunately, I have heard even young men have such poor self-esteem, and they think that because their skin is dark, that equates ugly. We
It's
had a
because somebody is controlling the narrative.
mm-hmm.
Recently I came across I came across a statement made by a very popular actor from Ghana that there's a survey which shows that Ghanaians happens to be one of the 10 countries with the least IQs in the world. And he was sitting on national television in Ghana, believing in this lie, selling it to the people. And nobody challenged him. And so you can imagine how many people buys into that idea through one medium. And then I decided to research into that statement. And it's true, it's a research finding by two people. Sometimes I don't even think they are worth mentioning. One British and one Finnish. And they are founded by a group in the United States called the Pioneer Fund. And the Pioneer Fund has a concept that the white man is superior to a black man. And so our brains are wired differently. And so they fund these two people to do their research. And when you read the outcome of the research, they will tell you that the conclusion is not set in stone because they didn't have this, they didn't have that, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do this. And my question is, why do you bring the results out?
Mm-hmm.
If you know your research is short of certain
Mm-hmm.
factual or truth, why do you bring it out?
Mm-hmm.
It tells you there's an agenda behind bringing the concept, the research out to reinforce the narrative that we are superior to you.
Mm-hmm.
So do not dare to break that ceiling. Think this is your ceiling. This is how far you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the concept that they have created. Even the so-called educational system in Africa, I call it schooling system. It's not an educational system where our students learn to read and write. We've been made to believe that your fluency in English, your dexterity in the English language tells how knowledgeable and how brilliant you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody speaks in the local dialect, he's not intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a narrative that has been created. And so in order for you to control the people, you have to control what they think. You know, um, this author who wrote The Miseducation of the Negro, oh gee, he's a British author, Carter G. Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if you control a man's thinking, don't worry about what he does
Mm-hmm.
because he is definitely going to do exactly what you want him to do.
Which is why now, although slavery is officially abolished, we are still globally very much enslaved by our thinking, whether it's influenced by money, whether it's influenced by poor self-esteem. But there are so many things that control the mind of individuals that keep them from excelling
Mhm.
because of the narrative, like you're saying, that is given to them. And if money is better than integrity,
Mhm.
then I'm going to focus all my attention on money.
Yep.
And we know it's the root of all evil.
Mhm. Yep.
But we'll do whatever it takes to get the money because we think
Yep.
the integrity isn't important.
Mhm.
And that's just, that's the going. So
Yep.
definitely I agree with
Yep.
you.
And you see, I try to bring this particular narrative to the attention of somebody, somebody I thought should know better. And he said, "Oh, it's just words. I mean, they just talking." When I was researching for my second book, Life is Easy, Don't Make It Hard, I came across some interesting information which opened my eyes to the things we say. It's a known truth. Let me not even say facts, truth, that when the fetus is formed in the woman's womb, the first sense, one of the first senses of hearing, one of the first senses that develops is the sense of hearing.
Mm,
Even as the fetus starts to form, one of the first senses is the sense of hearing. And what does it tell you? It tells you what you hear helps in
mm,
forming you as a
mm,
person. And since I came across that information, I'm trying to be very careful with the things I say
mhm,
because the things you say bounces back. You hear them too,
mhm,
So, and the Western world, let me put it that way, knows about this. And so they capitalized on that. As of now, if you take a look at the so-called educational systems in Africa, you'd be amazed. What is this?
Mhm.
How do you expect to develop a community based on this?
Mhm.
And you see, most of the people in power are products of that system, so they don't even see anything wrong with that.
Right. Right.
But I'm glad a few people are beginning to see Rwanda happens to be one. The first thing they did was to change the educational curriculum,
Mhm.
from schooling curriculum to educational
Mhm.
curriculum. Education is enlightening yourself or exposing yourself to your gifts and
Yep.
developing them to grow or progress your community. Your enlightenment would have to help in the progression or in the development of your community. And so your gifts is given to you to solve problems within the community. And so if after going through all the schooling systems to whatever degree and you cannot solve problems within your community and then you tell me you are educated, no, you're not. You were schooled.
Mhm.
And so no wonder most of the African countries have a chunk of the youth out of the school and they're waiting on governments to give them job or to employ them.
Mhm.
And that is the system set by the colonial masters.
Mhm.
And nobody dreams of changing that system. Nobody dreams of seeing this is a system to cripple us, to keep us within a certain cycle. So we would always be looking outside for help.
Mhm.
And so the G7, which happens to be the most powerful, it's called the world leaders, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. So if the definition of leadership is look at the definition of the G7 countries. It tells you the definition of their concept of leadership. And so you being the dark continent, you're not fit to be part of the decision-making body. You got to sit there, we make the decisions, and you go along. And in order for us to maintain the status quo, let us create a schooling system that will help these people stay the way they are, stay where they are, so we can continually take advantage of these people. And sometimes when I see some of the IMF loan conditionalities, I feel like throwing up. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how can an intelligent human being goes to a negotiating table and accept this for his or her community?
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we have to start tackling the issue from the culture. And how can we change the culture? We can change the culture by changing our thinking process. And how can we change our thinking process? By beginning to feed our minds with the positive things that we want to see. That is why I don't tolerate and entertain statements like, oh, the white man is amazing. Without the whites, Africa would have been doomed. Somebody even had the nerve to say that they should sell Ghana to the colonial masters or invite them back to rule Ghana because we're not fit to rule ourselves.
And who were the Ashanti?
He's a Ghanaian. This person is a
Right,
Ghanaian
right. Well, tell
talking
me about
this
that
talk,
empire.
you know?
Some
So,
people, even your own history and understanding. I believe Adinkra symbols are Ghanaian. Is that
mhm,
correct? And if you look at the Adinkra symbols, one of them being Sankofa, which means know your past or don't be afraid to go back to your past. Um, your very own symbols tell you these rich nuggets of information to help you know the powerful and the intelligence of the people who were there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of embracing it. And sometimes those things are introduced through like traditions, and sometimes as generations go by, they feel like they don't want to be traditional. But a lot of times, in order to look and set forth new beginnings, we do have to go back to tradition. And we do
It
have
is
to look
important.
at
It's
the things that
important.
our forefathers did that
Mm-hmm.
made it good so that we can be better,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
You made mention of the Asantis. I mean, that little tribe whipped the whole superpower.
Mm.
They whipped the British
Hmm.
and cut off the head of the commander of the army. So it's an interesting discussion. Unfortunately, today we were not able to broadcast on Facebook because I don't know what's going on with the systems today, being our
Okay.
first broadcast for the year, but we'll get that straightened up, and next week hopefully we should be able to get on Facebook. So after this, we're gonna work on the video and post it on Facebook, but we couldn't go to Facebook Live.
Mm.
Yep. I want to say thank you so much for your time with us on Analyze This. We got a whole bunch of programs coming up this year, and it's going to be an exciting one. We also going to have Bridging the Gap, where we're going to be talking about some very important issues concerning Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora, and how best we can bridge the gap so we can see our aspirations and our hopes being realized as Black people. Thank you so much, Ms. Veronica, being part of today's Analyze This. My name is Nana Osei Bonsu Jr. of Africa International Organization and Serto Leadership International. And this is Analyze This. We'll see you again next week, same time. Bye-bye.